Does the Church of England have a safeguarding crisis? We're going to have a look. Hi, welcome to the channel. My name's Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England. So are we going through a crisis in safeguarding? That's it. The headline that Premier Christianity magazine put out. And look at the most recent popular articles from Church Times. At the top four are about safeguarding. Something definitely is happening. So let's get into it. There's a lot to go through. So as I said, Premier Christianity said the Church of England safeguarding crisis explained. Survivors are losing trust in the Church of England's ability to do justice in cases of abuse, while a leading bishop says his name has been unfairly besmirched. They go on to say it's no overstatement to say the Church of England faces a crisis in respect of safeguarding. So what's been happening? Like I said, there's a lot to get through, but this article came out in March of a crystal meth smoker's Satanist Church of England vicar who was convicted of child pornography charges. This happened in the Diocese of Chichester. He was a vicar who boasted on social media that he was a crystal meth smoking Satanist who enjoyed bestiality and sodomy, and has been convicted by the Hove Crown Court of possession of child pornography. This man is sick. People like this work their way in the Church of England. The Church of England, for a while, probably didn't have as good as safeguarding practices as they do now, and people came in, and and we have to face that. Being a vicar of the Church of England, you know, and people do call you pedo or joke about kidney fiddling or whatever it might be that they say, because that's the association. If you're a vicar in the Church, Catholic or Church of England, they'll say that, and people will say it to your face. It doesn't help, because this is what happened historically, and people like this got in. So the article goes on to say David Renshaw was found guilty in February, 3 counts of possession of indecent images of children, 3 counts of making indecent images of children. This man is sick. Possession, prohibited images of children, and possession. You know what? All of these are sick people. And portraying images of intercourse with animals, namely dogs and horses. Blah. Honestly sick. And getting in the Church of England, needs to be investigation into how this person got in, and I hope there's an investigation. And I know they're slimy, and they work and their way in, and it's very difficult sometimes, but we have to make sure safeguarding practices are just, safeguarding basically checks if you've got a criminal history. It feels like no questions, no deeper checking. I don't know what you can try and do, but this man is sick, and he's a vicar in the Church of England. Do want to say though, since I've been a vicar since 2015, and I've always been in Oxford Diocese, the safeguarding I've seen has got better and stronger. We use something called parish dashboards, and it helps us with our safeguarding. It's got it uses a traffic light system, tells you what you need to sort out straight away and what needs perhaps coming up, and everything. Obviously you want to get everything green and okay, and it really helps put safeguarding in your mind and making sure that you're always up to date. And I think safeguarding now is a lot stronger at the local church level, at the local level. I don't know if they use that across the Church of England. I hope they do, but safeguarding is getting stronger. It's also about creating a culture in your church, but if you're the leader, you're gonna work against that. So, but this man is utterly sick. So going on, you've got Mike Pilavachi, who's now being accused of things, and this is a headline: victims of Christian cult leader speak out for the first time. Remember, we have to go with the headlines that people are writing. I don't think Soul Survivor is a cult at all, but young men say they were encouraged to receive full body massage on Reverend Canon Mike Pilavachi's bed and engage in wrestling matches. Allegations, as another headline, allegations against Soul Survivor vicar are recent as well as historic. So it sounds like over years. I'm not going to comment any more on this because of an ongoing investigation. Should any more come of this, and by the sounds of it, potentially it will. Potentially I'll do another video So moving on, look at the bigger picture of this crisis. A few months ago, there was a review. Here's the headline: review finds Lambeth Palace basic safeguarding requirements are absent or ignored. We'll talk about basic safeguarding requirements. So it says, today the Church of England faces yet another crisis. Like other recent events, it has a common origin. In March 2022, the Social Institute for Excellence conducted an independent audit of Lambeth Palace safeguarding arrangements. They make horrific reading, most of all for the survivors of abuse within the Church of England. And they come as the making report by the Church of England into the abuse of John Smith, shamefully passes more than 1,000 days overdue. How can you a report be 1,000 days overdue? And of course, for the victims, it's going to be more horrendous. But at Lambeth Palace, this is a report going into Lambeth Palace. This is not easy hearing. It says that absolutely anyone, could have their home workplace and a decade of work described in the way the report does would be a disgrace. That is, the home, workplace and work of a senior global Christian leader should be unbelievable. Obviously, this is where the Archbishop of Canterbury lives, in one of his houses. But then the palace itself, the most basic requirements of good safeguarding are absent, and for that, the very worst of reasons. Imagine, if it is possible, a parish church or primary school that does not yet have even half-decent record-keeping arrangements or safeguarding training. And yet this is Lambeth Palace, the present epicentre of the Anglican Communion, which we are told has a fundamental lack of understanding of what the law requires and what victims deserve. I'm glad they put the local parish church in there, because the local parish church, as I said, I think they do a lot of work on safeguarding, but it seems not in Lambeth Parish. So Lambeth Palace, I know they're going to start implementing it now, but there's nothing there, and the whole article is quite damning, and that's just what I read is damning in itself. But then I have to go through the script because there's quite a lot. As you can see by the headline, is there a crisis? So the next headline goes, Church of England obstructing its own safeguarding panel as calls grows for new chairman. Victims speak out, and Lambeth's inappropriate and irresponsible appointment of the new chair of the Independent Safeguarding Board. You won't believe this, but we'll get into it. I won't spoil it now. The Church of England is obstructing its own safeguarding panel, by denying them their own computers, refusing to share data, and treating them with hostility, whistleblowers have told the Telegraph. So the national newspaper this is in. The Independent Safeguarding Board was formed in January 2022 and tasked with scrutinising the work of the Church's national safeguarding team, as well as holding the Church to account regarding safeguarding issues. However, the ISB's only 2 board members have come forward to claim that their experience working with Church officials is an uphill battle and unnecessarily challenging. They claim there has been interference with their work, a lack of transparency, and reluctance to provide information, meaning that at times they have been met with hostility. Shocking. Their concerns have been echoed by victims who claim that unless the Church revokes its inappropriate and irresponsible appointment of the new ISB chair, as Meg Munn, the former Forest Office Minister who already holds posts within the Church of England, they will not only feel re-abused, but they will also refuse to work with the ISB and share their testimonies. Right, this gets into it. Miss Munn, the former Labour MP, was announced last month as Professor Atkinson's replacement, to the dismay of abuse victims who claimed it was too cosy and a conflict of interest because she would essentially be tasked with scrutinising her own work. So they appoint Miss Munn into this role, and she's going to be scrutinising her own work. Is she going to be fair, not biased in any way? It's crazy. Not only have you got this independent body set up by the Church of England to investigate the Church of England safeguarding, but they're not being allowed to do their job. Now they've got someone who's going to investigate her own work. But the Archbishops of Canterbury and York doubled down, and they said this in a statement. As Meg Munn starts a role as acting chair of the Independent Safeguarding Board, we affirm our confidence in her and ability to lead the board's important work, working with the 2 existing board members. She has agreed to bring forward options on the scope and terms of reference and fully implement safeguarding practices by the autumn. The process will involve widespread consultation, especially with survivors and with others in the church. But the survivors saying they don't want to work with her. In addition, the board have been asked to develop proposals for a process to appoint a permanent independent chair and additional board members. So she's only there for a short while. Let's hopefully she won't be the permanent one. They go on to say, Meg brings her experience of scrutiny of the church's safeguarding work in her role as independent chair of the National Safeguarding Panel since 2018. She also brings her previous experience as senior safeguarding professional in local authorities and as a government minister and member of parliament. So I'm sure she's got the qualifications to do it, and that's why they wanted her there. But it's actually the conflict of interest, and can she really scrutinise her own work without being biased or doing anything untowards? And if people aren't going to work with her, and these are the victims, then why would you still continue with the appointment? It's not going to be a productive to find out information, is it? So all that in itself is quite a lot. But we go on now with the big story of today, with the independent review into the abuse of Reverend Matthew Ineson, and the Bishop of Sheffield at the time, Stephen Croft, and the Archbishop of York at the time, John Sentimi, and how they acted to his allegations, and and what happened. But let's look first how it got into the press. So this story is national. So here's BBC. Lord Sentimi, former Archbishop of York, rejects child sex abuse review. The Telegraph says Lord Sentimi failed to act on claim of child sex abuse by CofE, pre-review fines. Guardian, John Sentimi forced to step down from CofE after failing to act on abuse claims. The Times, Bishop of Oxford urged to quit over mishandling of child rape case. The Star, which is a local Sheffield paper, former Bishop of Sheffield did nothing when victim of child sex abuse by priest asked for help, new review finds. So in the national papers, not looking good, and it's the reaction mainly of the Archbishop of York over that. But let's get into the article from the Star, which is the local Sheffield paper, to see a bit more about the story and what they have to say about it. The scandal over how victims suffered historical sex abuse at the hands of the late Reverend Matthew Devaranickin in Bradford in the 1980s has been laid bare in a report published yesterday, 14th of May. The damning inquiry has shown how several high-ranking clergy were approached for help by the survivor, Reverend Matthew Ineson, but then did nothing to help. In a statement on the 11th of May, the former Bishop of Sheffield, Right Reverend Stephen Croft, apologised for the failing, saying he did not realise it was a formal disclosure of abuse at the time or context. Already the report published by the National Safeguarding Team of the Church of England has led for the Archbishop of York, Lord John Sentimi, being urged to step down from active ministry. He reportedly rejects the findings. He rejects the findings because what he's saying is he was Archbishop and it stays at the local level. So if you report to your bishop, or however it goes, through what channels your local bishop would know. He's saying, I'm the Archbishop and I don't really have anything to do with that. My job's quite separate. So you can argue that technically, but he was aware, and as the Archbishop, my expectation is that you'd be making sure that this is getting investigated, especially this is a rape of a 16-year-old child by a priest. You need to get involved. You don't go back and double down and say, well, the rules were different. You made a mistake, and morally you should have got involved. So the article goes on to say, Mr. Ineson, who was 16 at the time of the abuse and later became a vicar who practiced in Rotherham for more than 10 years, told the church about it 10 years ago, and he's waived his right to anonymity. The report found one of the clergy, Reverend Ineson, confided in was the then Bishop of Sheffield, Stephen Croft, who was later told in a letter by the victim in June 2013 about the abuse that he had suffered, and copied it then to the Archbishop of York. In it, the victim said he had clearly disclosed the abuse twice to the Bishop of Sheffield, but the Bishop had not acted on this. So the Bishop of Sheffield hadn't acted on this, and if the Archbishop of York was being copied into this letter, he should have, questioned why it's not being acted on. we got a letter from the Bishop Stephen Croft, because he's now the Bishop of Oxford, our bishop, who said, a little over 10 years ago I made a mistake in my safeguarding practice. That mistake was costly for the survivor, and for this I am truly sorry. And he goes on to put context and things around. Just say I know a person who made a mistake with safeguarding. It wasn't they did anything, but they got a clergy discipline over it for not acting on something that they saw or was too close to them, again in a letter. So the question is, if that's happening to clergy at a local level, what's happening at the level of bishop and archbishop? This is still going on, so it's not finished yet, so those questions could be answered. But there is what seems a crisis in the Church of England for safeguarding at a certain level. At Lambeth Palace, I hope they're going to sort their safeguarding out. The historical abuse here, and taking responsibility, with the Archbishop of York, and what's going to happen to the Bishop Stephen Croft as well. Matthew Ineson has called for him through Twitter to step down. Safeguarding is a huge thing. Like I said at the beginning, the church has got a reputation for safeguarding because of the historical abuses. It's one of the things that we should be making sure that we get right. The safeguarding practices at local level are good. To be honest, they are very good. That when we follow them and make sure that they're implemented, it keeps everyone safe, and it makes it harder for people to come in. We just need to make sure that it's going through the church as a whole, but the way the church as a whole operates makes it harder to do that. So is the Church of England going through a safeguarding crisis? I think it is. It needs to get its act together and protect people, that they can come and know God and worship God and serve God without being afraid that abusers might get in. We need to be open and honest, and where we make mistakes, we need to be honest and repentant of that, finding reconciliation and changing things to get things right for future generations. What do you think? Are we going through a crisis? Is the church good at this? You get any stories from where you are? Hopefully good stories, not just horror stories about where the church is. Going forward for the channel, just to let you know, on Friday it will become Rev Dan's Roundup, so I'll be looking at news, what's happening in the Church of England, the wider Anglican communion, and from around the Christian world, and even news stories that are worthy for a Christian perspective on them. And on Tuesday I'll be digging deeper, taking one of those stories and going in, looking at what exactly is going on. Be also doing some live videos at some points, and every so often a special video taking a bit of the edge off all this news and having a bit of fun.